Good morning, everybody. This is the Legal and Justice Committee from the Incarceration Prevention and Reduction Task Force. It is 11:30 on November 8th. This is a hybrid meeting, and I will begin with the land acknowledgement statement. Before we begin, we acknowledge that we are gathered on traditional and unceded territory of the Lummi, Nooksack, Samish, and Semiahmoo people who have cared for and tended this land since time immemorial. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what has been buried by honoring the truth. We pay respect to their elders, past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events. All right, this meeting is brought to order, and the first item on the agenda is next steps for reentry. You all should have in your packets the Whatcom County sequential intercept model, and I believe Jackie Mitchell is going to assist us in going through some of the reentry programs. And Jackie, are you willing to get us started?
Yes, I am. I am struggling a little bit because I'm in a different place, and I'm in Colorado right now, so I'm trying to figure out what my technological capabilities are here.
All right.
Hey, everyone. So go ahead. How did you want me to start, Raylene?
Did you want us to share anything or to put up the sequential intercept model? I just wanted to make sure that we had everything set up for you.
I think at some point, if Jill has it, she can put up the needs resources 927 or whatever the latest rendition was, because there was a question about how does this system coordination meeting how does it interplay with the needs and resources?
Excellent. All right.
Let me know, Jackie, if I hit on the right document that you're looking for.
Oh, okay.
Is it this one or?
Yeah, probably a better one than the one I have. Mine is probably older because it. Do you have a date on that? Do you see a date on that anywhere?
Yeah, August 8th.
Oh no, that's way old. Okay.
Okay.
So one thing I guess you could do is make me a co-host or something, and I could show it if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a second.
But I could also just talk about it, so that's another possibility.
Okay. You are a co-host. Feel free to share. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't have to do anything specific. Okay, great. So some time ago, I think it was Arlene that asked what exists out there for reentry services and programs. And so I went about and developed an inventory that showed a lot of the programs that had developed over, let's say the last 3 or 4 years. During the pandemic, especially, there had come about a number of reentry programs that are all offered by community based treatment agencies, and they essentially, a lot of these programs were in existence, but they started offering services to help engage people into the community, or they were dedicating themselves essentially to the reentry focus from the jail. So it was interesting to me to note how many programs had been developed at that time over the last few years, and then to I think I submitted a reentry inventory that you all have seen, a few months ago. So that was pretty interesting. And then subsequent to that, because we also have reentry services in the jail that are offered by Lifeline Connections through the Behavioral Health and Reentry Services Program, we thought Melora and I had discussed about setting up a meeting to coordinate the services going into those programs. So essentially, people with behavioral health issues that need services we would be trying to coordinate a system where they would get into those programs and be able to make use of their case management services, and then ideally end up in treatment or in housing or in whatever other services they needed. So our focus has been very exclusively behavioral health and behavioral health case management, including a specific focus on the clinical side of reentry. So one of the things that as we discussed, was this reentry system coordination meeting, which just started a couple months ago, and which I've been co-facilitating with Lifeline Connections to try to basically what we're trying to do is centralize the triage and screening function going out of the jail, and then ensure a coordinated system for all those programs, so that everybody kind of has their role, and it's going to take some time to get there, but that's the focus. And coordinate services. But again, it's not based on individuals, it's based on systems. So we aren't getting releases of information or anything like that. Excuse me. We are looking at what are the big ticket items, the systems issues that we need to focus on, and sort of pave a better pathway for people who need to get into behavioral health services in particular.
So Jackie, are these potential services, or are they in any actuality yet?
No, most of the programs that we've been working with are already in existence. Yeah. So they're not on the needs planning that we've been doing with the gap analysis in that way. Most of these are in existence. They might need more programming or something like that. So from that standpoint, they would be on it. So it's a little of both, but the ones we're working with are already in existence.
When you say they're already in existence, do you mean that counselors are coming to the jail and working with inmates?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. That was the part I was trying to understand. Yeah, that's great.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. For both mental health and substance use disorder treatment, there are professionals already going into the jail and meeting with people and then trying to conduct reentry services on their behalf.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Can you help me understand what you
Like,
mean?
I guess I don't.
So these are intensive, these are like case management programs that actually receive people, like the PACT program as an example, or like LEAD, or like GRACE. So these are programs that are in existence that have the ability to case manage people and get them into treatment services or housing, or get their other needs met. But we're especially interested in the clinical piece of getting people into behavioral health services. And since there's not a lot of capacity right now,
Right.
then they'll case management them over the long term.
Right.
So
But LEAD and GRACE are not behavioral health specialists. I mean, they're case managers, but they can't provide actual service.
Correct. They don't provide.
So PACT, and PACT doesn't go in and provide services in the jail. I'm not aware of who actually.
Nobody provides services in the jail. What they're doing is engaging with the person, connecting with them, and then they'll offer to provide some case management services as the person goes out the door, so they can connect with the next sets of services that they're eligible for and want to get involved in. Hopefully behavioral health is
right. And I just would, just for everybody's edification, I don't know. I mean, PACT is extraordinarily limited in the people that it serves, and LEAD and GRACE also have, I mean, that's great. There's PACT, LEAD, and GRACE, but there's this I mean, they fail to address a massive population in need. So
correct. They do have their eligibility requirements, and it's a small group, and they provide very intensive case management to that small group. So they're very needed service. But there are other programs like Unity Care, who provides a lot of case management services.
right, but they won't come into the jail and engage and begin services with somebody who's incarcerated.
That's not what we've been hearing from them, but we can find out more about that. And then
I mean, Jackie, that's the issue that we're talking about is terribly important, because as presented, it makes it sound like people are going into the jail and providing services. And that's what I was just trying to clarify. Is it potential services or is it actual services? And so what you're saying is not quite yet.
So no, what I'm saying is they don't provide treatment. Nobody provides treatment at the
Right.
jail, except nobody provides treatment actually at the jail. There's no space to do that. But what they do, and this is what I mean by services, is they provide engagement services and case management services for people as they go out
Okay.
the door. So they'll go into the jail, meet with somebody, and then help usher them out the door.
Right,
And-
but people need preparation for a reentry. They need education for the process, and that needs to happen in the jail. That's what we ought to be working towards.
So
And
what
not
kind
there
of,
yet is
what kind of education are you talking about, Arlene? I'm not sure.
well,
I know.
education for jobs and getting along in society and family issues and yeah, there's quite a bit. People are going to be wanting jobs.
I think that's a more complex issue maybe than I'm prepared to talk about today, but because there is no space in the jail really to do a lot of that work. But
But I want to, I mean,
Maya, can I just please
Yeah.
finish? And I'd also like to sort of finish what I started talking about and take questions at the end, if that would be okay with people. But so the folks we have in the jail will engage them around what their needs are. And that comes from them, right? It's self-determined what their needs are, and then start helping them from that vantage point. And so if they say they need vocational services, then they can help kind of usher the way. Most of the people we're talking about right now have some pretty serious behavioral health issues and are not really ready for vocational activities of any kind, really. So we may get there someday, or there are maybe some people who are ready for that, but don't really have a serious behavioral health issue. And that might be a different process that would have to be worked through. So we're really interested in the clinical side of engaging people into behavioral health services. But of course, many of those people are going to need, food and housing as well. So of course, the case managers will work on those issues as well. But we're really looking at the Maslow's hierarchy of need and what do they need first, and what do they think they need first. So that's what I can say about that right now. But so anyway, just to kind of finish with the reentry services coordination. So some of the things we've been working on are things like unanticipated releases, which apparently has become quite a big problem in the jail with regard to folks having their first court hearing and being bailing out of jail, or the judge simply makes a determination that they can leave earlier than was expected. And what's happened for our behavioral health clinicians in these programs is that they miss an opportunity to engage the person because they've left before anybody even knew they were there. So we've been trying to work on that issue, but it's a very, very complicated issue. And so we've got, let's see. So yeah, I think what we're also planning towards would be what I would consider to be for sort of an idealistic system of reentry. So if in the needs and resources documentation, there is the recommendation to get an additional MHP as well as 2 more reentry case managers. And right now we only have 1 reentry case manager, making it kind of difficult for them to triage everybody going out of the jail or to connect with all of the various programs. So we got a long way to go to build on this, I think, and to improve it and make it really what it could be in terms of a good system, a good coordinated system. But let's see, when Jill had asked prior to the meeting if I could talk about how it relates back to the needs and gaps, and I mentioned that in the original documentation of this gap analysis, their reentry is listed as one of the services, and we asked for additional FTE. Well, it's also mentioned in the summary of the needs and resources under identified needs, gaps, recommendations, in several areas, not that it was specifically called out, but what system coordination can help with are some of the things like increased capacity of effective existing programs. We can help everybody be more effective at what they're doing if we coordinate the system. In addition, we're hoping, and Perry and I, as some of you know, are working on the issue of behavioral health assessments and no on-demand or no waiting assessments out in the behavioral health agency treatment arena. And so system coordination can also help facilitate some of that eventually as we are able to develop the capacity. Also, we have also worked, and this is mentioned in the summary of needs and resources from 9/27, the need for increased support and getting people reinstated on Medicaid. And so we've talked about that issue, and we'll continue addressing that. Probably have plans to bring an MCO on board to the meeting to discuss it more with us. Let's see what else. There's a bunch of them listed under post-incarceration community supports. People who need transportation, we'll be working on that. People who are released from jail and need to re-enter the workforce. Again, we don't get many of those at the level we're talking about. We get a lot of people who are more incapacitated and cannot make use of entering into the workforce immediately upon release. And then also people who need housing. So, I mean, that's another area that's mentioned. So anyway, that's how it relates back to the work that we've done before. And I think, see if I need to add anything to what I've already said. No, I think I've talked about the goal, some of the participants, and some of the challenges that we've been addressing. And so now, why don't we take questions? Go ahead.
Maya?
Yeah, sorry, someone just walked into my office. Yeah, so I mean, dealing with the mental health sentencing alternative, we're frequently trying to get folks who are in custody engaged with a mental health plan for when they exit. I mean, that's what's required for them to get this sentencing alternative. And we, through our efforts, have found there are 2 PACT programs. I think like Whatcom Treatment Center has a PACT program along with Lifeline Connections, and they are the only programs that will go into the jail and initiate a care plan with someone. So if you're telling me Unity does that, that's news to me. And we've been meeting with these agencies saying, what are we supposed to do? We can't get anyone to go into the jail and talk to our clients to get them. So that would be astonishing and amazing news. So if you follow up and find that to be true, I would definitely want to know about that. But I think there's just this massive, I mean, so few people qualify for PACT, and there's so few PACT spots that, but it's like, so I don't know. I feel like there's just this massive hole, and that's all.
Yeah, I agree. And I think there is a hole, especially for people coming out of the mental health sentencing alternative. And I think there's work being conducted that Perry's involved in and you're involved in, and I'm not as involved in, so I'm not as knowledgeable about it. So I'm not clear if, for example, Unity Care, I'll have to double check with them, but it was my understanding they could go in, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they go in and meet with anybody. I mean, it's completely possible that they have certain eligibility requirements and some of your people are not meeting those requirements. So I don't know. I have to ask further. Arlene, did you have another question?
No, I asked the question that I needed to ask. I mean, yeah, it's
Okay.
Darlene?
Sorry about that. I guess my question, Jackie, is, I know we're all paddling as quickly as we can, but if it's going to be another 5 years before we have a facility, let's say at least 5 years, do you have any thoughts outside the box? Because if the jail's not going to suddenly have any more magic room, it's going downhill every year we speak. And so I don't know. I mean,
Yeah, it's a good question.
I don't
It's a,
know.
it's a good question. So, I mean, I think the issue for us in the jail and for reentry is having a confidential space to meet with people, right? And also having the staff that can accompany the person to whatever location where the mental health or behavioral health professional meets with them. So there are two issues really that would have to be dealt with inside the jail. One would be more correction staff. And I did mention to Wendy, and she seemed open to the idea. It's just she's having trouble filling positions at the moment. And
Right.
the idea was to have maybe a specific behavioral health corrections officer who could accompany people when they have a meeting with one of the behavioral health clinicians. And because there's space in the jail, there are places, they're not ideal, right? Because really ideally you need a pass-through window, and you need the ability to talk to the person directly and have them sign paperwork usually to get them enrolled in a program. And you need it to be confidential, as I said. So I think there are options, but and maybe not too far down the road, Darlene, to your point. But like I said, Wendy's having trouble hiring staff for corrections, and yeah, and then I think that's a main thing of what it would take. And then it would be trying to figure out which rooms are actually really conducive to being able to meet with people. I can think of maybe 2 or 3 rooms, maybe 4 rooms off the top of my head where a meeting like a confidential meeting with somebody who needs behavioral health services could take place. And
I know the attorney
think-
client rooms aren't much.
Yeah.
But I mean, is that even an option?
Well, it could be in some cases, and there's also the remote room. So it could be in some cases where a person just needs to meet with somebody, but they don't need a signature of any kind. Those might be viable. And then the remote room could be an option too sometimes. But again, then we need staff still to accompany people who could be a danger. So Arlene, did that answer the question, Darlene? Sorry.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think Darlene has really addressed what I'm wanted to bring up, which is that in between now and the time that we have a new jail, we need a place for people to receive services that are absolutely essential during the time that they're incarcerated. So could we please work on setting up a system for that? It's absolutely essential not to have a blank space here when there actually is a place for people to meet.
Yeah, I have, like I said, I've been talking with Wendy about it, and I don't know what to do about the corrections piece where people need accompaniment, but we can certainly have more conversations to see what can be done around that.
Thank
Jack-
you, Jackie.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Wondering about the staffing issue and monitoring release, because there does seem to be a disconnect. I mean, jail staff is there to release the defendants, but not necessarily track them. And I think Wendy's thought of having a behavioral health corrections would be excellent. But I do know staffing across the board for law enforcement is definitely an issue. What about clerical staff that doesn't necessarily meet the same requirements, but basically is just monitoring the individuals that you guys have flagged that need help, that can be maybe working out of the jail to assist in making sure that those connections are made when they're released? Because it seemed like that's kind of a disconnect for a lot of people leaving the jail, that they don't know, or you guys don't know when they're being released. You know, a judge can say, okay, this guy's being released today, he's got to report to probation as soon as he's released. And at the same time, they're getting 6 defendants booked in, which delays the release of that individual, which means you guys know, yeah, he's going to get out, but it could be at 1 o'clock today, it could be at 7 o'clock tonight.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, those are some great ideas, Raylene. I think we from the reentry systems coordination meeting, the folks there came up with a lot of ideas, which included having staff kind of at the front desk at booking or around the area so we can engage them even prior, even before they're, well, but at least by the time they're finished booking, and then we would know who's in, but we don't always know when they're released, and we still have that piece. And yeah, I don't know. It's something I think we would have to have a conversation with Wendy about. And so if she could maybe be here at the next meeting, maybe we could have a fuller, Wendy or Caleb, to have a fuller conversation about it, because they certainly have a better sense of their own operations and what takes place and what's possible and what's not.
Yeah, I know Caleb was also working on tablets for the inmates, so we're working on a new contract. I haven't heard where that's at in the process, but that's also something where maybe DocuSign could come in hand with people that need to have signatures. If they already have the tablets available and you guys have the capability to do that, would that work for the forms and stuff that you guys need?
Yeah, that could work very well. And I did hear recently something about people having tablets, so I don't know how that's going or if there are just specific people that have them, but yeah, that is definitely something that we could be utilizing for sure.
So
and Lifeline already does that with other participants in some of their other programs. So as our jail behavioral health provider, I would think they would know how to implement that.
okay. And then the other thing that came up is reinstating them on Medicaid. What's the possibility of us looking to legislation to change it so they don't lose their insurance when they go into jail? Is that even a possibility?
I think I was at a meeting a week or two ago where it did not sound possible, and I'd have to go back in my memory banks and try to figure that out. But because essentially it would mean that the state was paying for services in the jail, and they don't want to do that. The state does not want to do that. The state wants the counties to pay that for services in the jail, and only allows for people if they need to be hospitalized in an emergency situation, essentially to be TR'd and then and then provided services. But there's some point where they actually, Wendy would know this better than I do, but where they can get some of their hospitalization that they've done for the individual paid for in the jail. So, Stephen probably knows something about it. He's got his hand up.
Yeah, this is one of the few bits of legal information I've retained over the last couple of years. It's a matter of federal law, and it has been since the 70s, the institutionalization that Medicaid will not pay for care in a public facility that has a responsibility to provide care itself. So it's a last resort, and it's not available while they are incarcerated.
So it would literally take an act of Congress, I think is what you're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. And I was going to say something to that. Or what's that?
How do we do that? How do we make that act of Congress? I mean,
Well,
is it precedent or?
So, Stephen can answer that better than I can, but what I would say is it did not turn out that was as big an issue as the providers originally had seemed to indicate that it was, that the bigger issue is those unanticipated releases. So people are leaving too fast and then they don't know about it, and it's hard for them to engage somebody that they couldn't even find, right? Because I mean, jail is to some extent a sort of a captive audience, if you will. You can actually find people and help them, versus if they're let out onto the streets and they're homeless and they have little resources or little initiative to kind of call somebody back. It's just much harder to engage them out there in the streets. So
I think that's part of the problem with the reentry with individuals that maybe don't have the extreme behavioral health, because the book and release seems to be so quick lately on individuals that they lose some of the treatment. They either go on warrant status, and then we finally get them back into court and they're saying, well, we want to do treatment first, but in order to do treatment, we have to re-engage in Medicaid, or we need to get the healthcare because we can't get some of that treatment without the healthcare. And so then that lags the process because they just lost their insurance when they got incarcerated. They were released in 2 days, which wasn't maybe the behavioral health requirements that you would have stepped in for, but there's still definite needs for the reentry for those individuals as well. So I guess I hate to see anybody lose insurance because they got booked and released in
Right.
a couple days. And I don't know how often that happens, but I know a lot of the individuals that we see in court, the insurance is definitely an issue in getting people assessed to get some of the programs that are out there.
Yeah, Raylene, it is definitely part of our reentry programming with the behavioral health and reentry services through Lifeline to work to get people's Medicaid reinstated or get them on insurance through the healthcare exchange or on Medicaid. So I've been hearing from the providers that it's not that frequent of occurrence. It happened a couple of times, which was part of what prompted us to want to start this system meeting, was because it seemed like, wow, I thought we had that resolved. And it turns out that their issue is more with the unanticipated releases than it is with anything. So hopefully, and if we're not capturing the folks that need Medicaid, because we have an avenue now through Unity Cares outreach, Medicaid outreach, we have an avenue for helping us get people on Medicaid immediately. So, and then our hope is to maybe get an MCO involved, and we can, because one MCO can represent the others in a system meeting, that they could also be a part of any holes in that area.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any other questions for Jackie?
Donnell was up there a minute ago, but I guess he.
Hank?
Yeah, so as I look through the whole packet, I guess what strikes me as just not completely understanding is our relationship with the Department of Corrections and discussing these type of reentry items. For example, when I was in Missouri, we worked with the Department of Corrections, Probation and Parole directly to make sure that some of the programming that we did, sometimes it overlapped with some of the things that they were trying to do to reduce any type of recidivism. So I guess to the group here, to the committee is, what's been our experience with that? Because unless I'm missing it, I don't think I'm really seeing that.
So that's a good point, Tank. And I think it's something we should consider for sure. Is who else should be on board? The focus being for us very much behavioral health services, as opposed to the folks that are going out and have no needs in that area. But that sure is a lot of people. So, and I know that a lot of I don't know, maybe Bruce can answer this about how much people are involved in their services and maybe Grace Lead or Unity Care kind of services. So that would be interesting to hear.
Yeah, and part of the interest is that when I review their website, they have a whole section on reentry programs and their different programs, but I'm not really sure how robust those programs are and how integrated they are with their local communities.
Now, who's the they you're talking about, Tank?
The
Sorry.
Department of Corrections.
Oh, the Department of Corrections. Yeah.
I think we had DOC come and speak several years ago about reentry. I want to say it's probably been 3 or 4 years ago, but since COVID, I don't know that we've had any updates on where they're at and what they're doing in relationship to reentry. So we're kind of looking at gaps and next steps that we can look at for reentry. So that might be something we want to reach out to somebody from DOC and see where they're at and how it works with some of the programs that we've got going currently. Tank, do you have any other thoughts on that?
No, not any other thoughts, but just to at least reach out. I know they have an office here locally on North Forest, but I'm just curious too, is there any programming that they're doing that we don't know about? So it looks like Maya might have something.
Yeah, we are literally at noon tomorrow. We're having a training on reentry with Amanda Lease from DOC. About a month ago, we had a training that was the Redemption Project from, and the Seattle Clemency Project came and did a presentation. But this one will be focused on like the DOC reentry facility. So Amanda Lease is the connection there. She's driving up from Everett to do a presentation for us tomorrow. So that's who I would suggest you contact if you want to have someone present.
Maya, do you think you could get her contact information and forward it off to Joe?
Yeah, I have it. So I'll send it to
Excellent.
Jill.
But you said Amanda who?
Amanda Lease, Lease.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do we have any other questions, hands regarding this topic? So I think in reference to the sequential intercept model and Jackie's presentation, I really appreciate that, Jackie. Thank you so much. That we're still looking to see what are the needs and gaps and possible next steps. We've got some ideas, so maybe we can reach out to Wendy or Caleb and see what their thoughts are on staffing, the tablets, and then Ms. Lease to see if she can assist us on information on DOC. And I think that covers pretty much the rest of that topic. Now I have to go on to find my other piece of paper. I have too much stuff in front of me. Draft committee year-end report and priorities for 2023. I believe that is page 14 in the packets, if I recall correctly. So is there anything that you all would like to see for the updates for 2022 and what's next in 2023? Okay, come on, people. Somebody don't jump up and tell me what we're supposed to do here right away. I think reentry is going to be a common theme, so we're going to continue working on that.
I think the temporary use of space for the period of time before there is a jail with lots of space, so that the services that are available can be used. I don't believe that was in our list.
No, I think that would be beneficial, Arlene. Anybody else want to add to or take away or focus on any of the items that are on what's next? Jill, would you put up page 14 for us?
Yeah, give me 1 minute here to get there.
Thank you. I don't know what we'd do without Jill and Jackie. They're so helpful.
Can you see the list
Yes.
of items? Okay.
Yeah, so we've got the updates on 2022 DV treatment, inmate communication. You guys can all read this. It's all in front of you. I'm just kind of letting you, Maya, yay, I have a hand. Thank you.
There's a competency work group meeting, which Barry Buchanan is kind of spearheaded, and but there are there are models for competency diversion programs. There's one in King County that we're looking at, and I just think that issues regarding competency, the lack of competency restoration services really needs to be addressed. I think many people are incarcerated who in our jail awaiting those services that are not forthcoming.
I concur. I think that might be also something that we may want to discuss at the Joint Behavioral Health and Legal Systems Committee, which is the next item on our agenda, So I think that would be something when we want to put forward for the next meeting, as well as continue that into 2023. So thank you. Any other hands? So I also know that Tank and I are members of the another task force that recently started up through the courts. He's representing the chiefs of police, and I'm representing the district and court municipal management, but it's quite a wide variety. So maybe seeing what programs they have and then bringing them back to our meetings to see if there's some things that we can work together with. I really do have the childcare portion near and dear to my heart, because I think that's really an important tool that would help people in the court system. So that's one of my wishes, but I mean, I'm just one person and we have a huge committee here, so I'd like everybody to participate. So at least think about that kind of stuff. If you have anything that comes to your head in the middle of the night, email Jill and she'll forward it on to me and Arlene. I think we can probably go on to other agenda items for the joint meeting. I don't know, Stephen, have you heard anything else from the Behavioral Health Committee on items that they wanted to bring forward?
I have not. I think you're right that the competency restoration work group that Maya mentioned, Barry has convened, that whole topic, I think is sort of front and center for both committees and would be a good agenda item to pursue.
The Behavioral Health Committee doesn't meet until next week, so they haven't had a chance to weigh in on the December agenda.
Okay. Well, if we put that forward from our group, and then they have anything else that they want to add, I think that might fill the agenda, because those are hot topics and they take a lot of time. Unless there's anything else that other people want us to pursue at this time. Okay, I see no hands, no voices. It's quiet. Do we have any public comment or other business? Jill, you want to check on public comment?
Sure, we have 2 attendees attending virtually today. If you'd like to speak to the committee, please virtually raise your hand by selecting the raise hand icon or dialing *9 on your phone. And no hands are raised, and we don't have any attendees in person in the conference room.
Thank you. I hope nobody's too sad, but I think we're going to be able to adjourn early. It's 12:13. So unless anybody has anything else, I think we can call this meeting adjourned for the day. And thank you all for participating.
Thanks, Raylene.
Raylene and Arlene, can you stay after if you have a minute, please?
Sure.